What's up, everybody? Ryan Chapman, Carson Field here at Neyland Stadium. Sooners on side post-game wrap / post-game pod after a thrilling, confusing 33-27 victory over the Tennessee Vols, one where Carson, Oklahoma shouldn't have been in the game in the first half. They're up at halftime somehow. Tate Sandell, that's how. Defense turns it on. Offense grows into the game. They take control of it. They try to throw it away at the end. Two hands teams. It was a wild ride here at Neyland.
This is arguably the weirdest football game that I've ever attended. They had a little bit of everything: long field goals, turnovers, just some bizarre moments. And ultimately, though, I felt like it was a similar position as far as OU had no business being in the game last week against Ole Miss, but they couldn't find a way that day. Today they were able to. The defense was great down the stretch. The offense made plays when it needed to. So it was much different and a good response from what happened last week.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. You look up in the first half, Tennessee outgained Oklahoma 255-99, but they only get to the end zone once. It was on the opening drive of the game. It's something that Brent Venables had talked about, that Tennessee, absolutely unbelievable when it comes to first quarter points, things like that. He even burned a timeout basically 4 or 5 plays into the game after what he thought was a bad pass interference on Corley Gilly. It was a bad pass interference. The ball was 7,000 feet over anybody's head, but he almost had to refocus the team, and it looked like Carson, offense comes out, dud. It might be another situation where you're going, oh gosh, Tennessee's moving the ball, and then Owen Heineke hits Joey Aguilar. The ball bounced to the ground. R. Mason Thomas able to scoop it up, rumble 71 yards, holding off. He drug a tight end 25 yards, and then Oklahoma had to drag him into the end zone to look like he tweaked something on the end there. And you might be thinking, gosh, at one point that might have been perfectly representative of the Venables era. The defense makes a huge play, but you lose your best pass rusher, you lose your best defensive player. But that seemed to settle everything down, everything back in. Tennessee was able to go back up 10-7, but Carson, from there, we had a football game.
Yeah, no, definitely. It looked like that was going to be, sorry about that, audio check, but it looked like it was going to be an easy 14-0 lead for Tennessee, and that was just such a momentum shifter, took a lot of the energy out of this very loud, very good crowd here at Neyland Stadium. And just a magnificent play by Heineke to strip him, obviously by Thomas to drag Miles Kitzelman however many yards. You said 25.
25. I counted it.
That's
We counted
crazy.
it up in the press box. It was a 25-yard drag.
Yeah, it was just a remarkable play, though. It just kind of reminded me a little bit of beast mode Marshawn Lynch back in the day. I know R. Mason Thomas has talked a lot about, I wanted to be a running back when I was a kid. We saw some of that today, saw some of the speed, the strength to kind of be a power back, and that was just so impressive.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And from there, Oklahoma was able actually to settle in a little bit. Owen Heineke talked about it after the game. He had 12 tackles in the first half, only one in the second half. A lot of that was because Oklahoma did an excellent job bottling up the run game, which then made some of the passing concepts that Tennessee tries to get to, which everything hinges off of that, a little bit different. And the second quarter, Oklahoma settles in, and it became the Tate Sandell show. Oklahoma moves him into 55-yard range. That kick tied the Neyland Stadium record for the longest kick here on this very historic patch of grass. Behind us, he would go on later in the game to tie that record again with another 55-yarder. And from there, it was like the tug and pull of the Oklahoma offense. Geometry looks off, looks gross. It's another day of you're sitting there going, Deion Burks is open, he missed him. Jaron Canick's open, he missed him. This is not good. Did Ben Arbuckle forget about Xavier Robinson and all that stuff? And Oklahoma was just trying to piece something together, and they were aided by 2 massive plays again by the defense. First, it was Peyton Bowen as Tennessee's trying to get near the red zone again, trying to punch in for 7 instead of 3, and Oklahoma had forced 4 turnovers all year. Carson, suddenly Peyton Bowen gets the pick, a nice little return. Oklahoma's offense puts them in territory for Tate Sandell to knock one through, and then you're sitting here going, okay, they get to the other side of the 2-minute timeout. Can Oklahoma milk enough clock? I remember in the blog thinking, okay, they're coming out of this thing 2nd and 10. Do you take the shot, knowing if it doesn't pop off, Tennessee's got all their timeouts, and it's a quick straight offense? Do you try to just manage clock while you're trying to get to the end zone, but more than anything, you don't want Tennessee to get the ball back? Best of no worlds for Oklahoma. They had to kick the field goal. Tennessee got the ball back, but it was a Robert Spears-Jennings interception. This time, another day where Joey Aguilar was under pressure. Spears-Jennings gets the pick, sets it up, and suddenly you look up and you go, Oklahoma's taking a lead into halftime, 16-10. They're getting the ball coming out. What is this world that 3 turnovers in the first half?
No, it was bizarre, and I mean, I thought the best way to get ahead in this game was to get pressure on Joey Aguilar. We've seen what he can do when he has time. We saw it a couple times tonight, but every time that he got pressure, it just seemed like he was rattled. His throws weren't as accurate, leading to some of those turnovers like you mentioned. I mean, that one was, I don't know if I'd say a game saver, but it was a game changer to get that one in the last 2 minutes of the first half. Just a monumental play by Spears Jennings. Just totally turned what could have been a big Tennessee swing into an OU one.
Yeah, only 4 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. We don't have the full stats page in front of us because we're out here, but it felt like the big thing was the pressures, and it felt like that Brent Venables, we haven't really seen Brent Venables have a full kitchen sink game quite yet at Oklahoma. There have been times where he's tried to ramp up the pressure late, like against Alabama last year, because Oklahoma got ahead. He's able to keep throwing guys. It felt like that from like the second or third drive, he just kind of said, we got to open this thing up and try and generate pressure any way you can. Oklahoma, plenty of hits on Aguilar. There were a couple more that Robert Spears Jennings almost had one in the third quarter that narrowly missed. And you sit there and you're going, okay, it was 255 yards in the first half, but it was what Alabama had done to Tennessee to a certain extent, which was make them, when the field gets really short, can you bow up, can you go ahead and enforce field goals? But then Oklahoma's offense comes out, gets nothing going on that first drive of the second half. Tennessee marches down the field, big explosive play, 17-16. And Carson, you obviously were in it, in the atmosphere, which Neyland Stadium, I know we talked about all week, unbelievable. It was not a one-off back in 2015.
No.
This place was rocking tonight, the dark mode, the light show pregame. But it felt like that when the turnovers started coming, there were a lot of groans, a lot of WTF guys, what's going on here? And it seemed like Oklahoma, for a small period of time, I'm not going to say took Neyland out of the game, but nerfed the atmosphere until it was 17-16 all over again.
They did a little bit, and I felt like part of that was self-inflicted on Tennessee's end, just with some of their play calling. I know that tackle that PJ Adebawore had deep in this end, that was a bizarre play call. 3rd and short, just a simple run play after they had run twice on that drive into very little success. Drawing that up was weird, and you could hear some of the groans from the Tennessee fans. Felt like they were losing a little bit of their life. And then finally, OU's offense able to get some things going, not perfectly, but a lot better than we saw earlier in the game.
Yeah, and something that Brent Venables, he talked about on this postgame radio show, he kind of talked about with us in the postgame press conference, that at some point, enough is enough. And it sounds like, I don't know if he would say he like issued a challenge, but it sounds like they got into the locker room and basically said, at some point, when are you going to live up to the Oklahoma, he was pointing to the Oklahoma, when are you going to live up to that? When are you going to just start making plays? When are you going to start putting aside the, oh, well, we had a play here, we missed it, we had a play here, all the stuff that we talk about, right? That it seems like every time they seize control of anything, poof, it's gone. And there was an element of that here, certainly, but for the defense, there wasn't that drive where you go, hey, once it was 17-16, Oklahoma's offense got going, there wasn't that drive where you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening, until the very, very end of the game when that stuff gets really, really weird when you're up 9 with like 2.5 minutes left, or 4:15, whatever it was. It seemed like this defense came out, and it was honestly a really weird moment. Xavier Robinson, the first time Oklahoma's offense crosses the 20, it's Xavier Robinson. He was going to the right, runs through an arm tackle, bounces back toward the middle of the field. The ball gets punched out, just a great peanut punch there by Tennessee, and from that point on, it was 3 and out from OU's defense, and Tennessee had a special teams error when it came to the punt near midfield that set Oklahoma up in a great field position. Another 3 and out, and that's when it felt like, I don't know, something shifted in the defense where they're like, we're going to just go out and be that elite unit. Once Oklahoma got the lead a little bit, then it made it to where Josh Heupel and Tennessee felt like they got a little too pass happy.
Yeah, and I feel like we talked about in the losses to Texas and Ole Miss that the defense was good but not good enough. It was absolutely good enough today. You saw some of that physicality that you saw early on against Michigan, Auburn, when this defense looked like it was the best in the nation. I mean, an offense as good as Tennessee's is going to have their big plays on you. That's going to happen. You saw it a couple times tonight. But, I mean, late in the game when it mattered most, the defense did what it needed to do. I felt like even on that last-ditch effort when Tennessee settled for the field goal, there were some good coverages, really some good balls from Aguilar that OU defended really well, and just very consistent the last about quarter and a half of the game from the defense.
Even once you got into the second quarter, there was the play over the middle of the field where, or was that the first quarter? Doesn't matter. Where Aguilar delivers like a perfect strike right over the middle of the field, and Peyton Bowen comes across and absolutely smoked
I think that was
Staley.
first quarter.
Yeah. So that was a moment where, and that was on a drive where I had like turned to, I was sitting between George Stoya and Tom Green, and was like, this is a big moment. Like, I know it's very, very early in this football game, but this offense clearly has taken some time to settle in. They can't let this thing get away from the offense, and they didn't. And part of that, I think, was John Mateer settled in, which we'll talk about. He certainly came alive in the second half. But I thought another part of it was we knew that Michael Fasusi, he's gotten a lot of time this year at left tackle. Ryan Foje making his second start on the right side. No Derek Simmons again. Pretty good against Ole Miss, but now Tennessee has a whole week of tape. Hey, they lost that rep. How do I want to challenge this, challenge that? Then Eddie Pierre-Louis at left guard. It's something I asked Brent Venables about. You had three freshmen, basically, a redshirt freshman, Eddie Pierre-Louis, and two true freshmen out there. And he just laughed and basically made a joke about, we're going to have to take care of them because everybody's going to be calling and see what they've got. But it was a really, really young offensive line that grew into the game. And by the end of the game, Carson, it almost felt like we were back to, why aren't you running the football more? Because this offensive line, they were leaning on Tennessee. For as much as Oklahoma's defense had to survive on the field in the first half, the third quarter, it felt like it was outside of the touchdown drive that made it 17-16. It felt like it was back in the Cotton Bowl where Oklahoma's defense couldn't get, that was Tennessee's defense, couldn't get off the field.
No, 100%. I felt like the run blocking from OU was very similar to what we saw in Columbia, South Carolina. That was obviously a great effort from the offensive line. A lot of holes opened up late in the game. X Robinson finally gets the ball in his hands, makes the most of it. John Mateer a lot more effective than he's been recently on the quarterback runs. So just things we hadn't seen lately and things that have got to be refreshing for OU fans, knowing, okay, we still have a good future with this offensive line. We still have a good future with this running game. It's going to get better. It does take time. But I think this was a step in the right direction.
Yeah, Mateer finished 19 of 29 through the air for 159. He did have interception. We'll get to it. The whole last 6 minutes of this game was bonkers. But I thought crucially he had 16 for 80 on the ground, the touchdown, which we'll also get to it. Weird. On the ground. But you think about it, there was the play where it felt like the John Mateer against Michigan was back. 3rd and 16, third quarter. They're coming into this end zone. As I labeled it, it's the Baker Mayfield end zone. If you know, you know. Baker Mayfield, this was the end zone of his heroics. Sterling Shepard was back on the other end. It was the 3rd and 16. He picks up 20 yards. I thought it was a great play by Xavier Robinson to recognize that his quarterback was running, and he picked up the linebacker, which really opened up the lane, not just for like a positive getting it back to the line of scrimmage, but to maybe get to the sticks. And there were a couple times early where Mateer, it was so bizarre. He was drifting to the right. He almost, the one time he got sacked, he put his arm out, almost acknowledging the pressure was there, and he continued to drift into it. There was another play on the ground early in the game where he was trying to pick it up, and he ended up getting some yardage, but he was late through the hole when it was clear as day, like, hey, man, you need to run there. It felt like that run, Carson, the third quarter is really when Mateer locked back in, and then he delivered that ball to Satania as well, and then it was back to, like, hey, it's the Mateer you saw against Michigan, the Mateer you saw against Auburn. Not always perfect, but can step up and make big plays late.
No, I felt the same way. I mean, this is a defense that struggled, but they still have dudes on that defense, a lot of athletes, and Mateer looked very similar. Like you said, not perfect. There are going to be more accurate quarterbacks in college football, but the playmaker that you need to win big games like this, not all of the best playmakers are the most accurate, the most game manager types, and I certainly wouldn't call John Mateer that, but he is a playmaker. Just that long run, 3rd and very long, that was so impressive. Just, I felt like that was a turning point as far as his composure, his confidence, and being able to command this team to a win.
Yeah, it was big time, and that gets us to the end of the game. Oklahoma manages it, and you're sitting here going, all right, this is the knockout blow. This is where Oklahoma needs to separate, right? They put this drive together. It's 1st and 10 with 4:15 left in the game on the plus 35. This is where you get into not quite 4-minute drill territory because they'd already started the drive, but this is, hey, if you could just get another field goal on the board, it pushes it out to 12. It's going to be 2 touchdowns since he had 2 timeouts left. Then they come out, and inexplicably, I felt like it was deja vu, except this time Hugh Freeze was on the Oklahoma sideline. It's exactly what happened against Auburn last year, that he puts in, Ben Arbuckle puts him into an RPO look. Mateer pulls it, throws it to Jermichael Carter, ball pops up, then suddenly it becomes an interception. Brent Venables after the game just was like, yeah, that needed to be a run. Believe he'll go over that with Ben Arbuckle in the moment, immediately after and after that. And then it just suddenly became this Oklahoma managing it. If you score a touchdown, the game's over. Like, there were Tennessee fans leaving. They were getting up in their section to go once Oklahoma kind of crossed midfield, and everybody kind of came rushing back, and that set up the big long touchdown drive late. We can get to the Xavier Robinson piece of it at the end, but just what a bizarre, that was like the moment of like, even when you thought they had it was Oklahoma going to turn the corner. They gave it right back, and you were like, you're back in another football game.
Yeah, it felt like they got a little too cute for the moment just in that sequence where it bounced off of Carter's hands and into the defenders. If it's 5 minutes earlier in the game, I love that call. I mean, it should have been open. It just took a weird bounce off of him. I felt like, don't hate the read. I hate it in that situation.
Hate the play call. It's like,
I hate the setting of when it was called. Love the play design, though. I feel like that would have been a good hitter earlier in the game. It wasn't, though, and thankfully for them, it was not costly.
It was bonkers. Tennessee comes down, scores. Oklahoma hands team gets out there, recovers it. Xavier Robinson busts off a 43-yard run and then decides to fall down at the 1, which I think is okay if you then, so Tennessee had 2 timeouts that forced them to burn 1 timeout. If Mateer comes out and takes like another knee and then you run clock off and then maybe instead Oklahoma like scores on the next play. That, by the way, is the play where Eddie Pierre-Louis headbutts Michael Fasusi, and then Michael Fasusi's like, hell yeah, brother, I'm headbutting you back. Then they like sprint out there, which the Fasusi, Pierre-Louis, Foje, we got to keep those guys together because they're an absolute they're a group. They're an absolute group of characters. But it was a whole situation. Way less worried about the time management at the very, very end because I don't know. It's hard to just turn away the points the way that things had gone because you're making them go score twice and all that. But it was just kind of the moment where even when you felt like they had turned a corner, and I think we'll see if they have turned a corner. We'll get to that here in a minute. It was like here you go again. They can't run with success, can't live with success, refuse to.
Yeah, I felt like I don't think there's too much to blame as far as the play calling, just scoring the next play after that big run from Robinson. It's a weird. There are so many different ways you can play that. I feel like once Robinson breaks a big run like that, scoring, I mean, getting up 2 scores was huge. Tennessee obviously able to get a field goal, but OU secondary was really good on that answer from Tennessee, preventing the deep passes from hitting, and that ultimately they were able to recover the onside, and it didn't really matter at the end of the day, but I feel like you kind of lean on the blockers, lean on the hot hand that was Mateer at that point of the game, get that last touchdown, give them just one kind of knockout blow to end it.
Yeah, and it was, you go all the way back earlier when the Xavier Robinson 4-yard touchdown went in, Oklahoma goes up 23-17. They opt not to go for 2. That would put you at 25, or at 24, 17 instead of 23-17 because they were up 23-17. That was kind of quirky, although I do understand, I understand it for both ways. That saying, hey, go for it, put it back up. I also understand if you get in a 2-point conversion thing and the math gets wonky, that I don't know what the analytics say, but I certainly know as a football watcher, especially on Sundays, I end up in this weird 2-point conversion fest. Like that one with,
it almost happened last week against Ole Miss.
Yeah, with 2:03 left in the third quarter, I'm more okay with that than the RPO call there at the end.
Agree.
But it was an interesting spot. We talked about rotation so much. Jermichael Carter played a really prominent role today. He was on the field way more than usual. It was a spot where it felt like they quickly were going to different stuff. You saw John Mateer playing it a lot more empty, I thought, early, and I just wonder how much it didn't help him early. He eventually settled in later, but so much of it was just confusing. It seemed like Arbuckle was like, okay, well, we've schemed some guys open, and that's not working, so what else can I go to try to get my quarterback back locked in, back rolling, and thankfully for Oklahoma, I think it truly was that run on the ground, and from there they were off and running.
Yeah, I felt like aside from that RPO call that led to the pick, I felt like it was a pretty well-called game, just Arbuckle adjusting to Mateer's strength, what he is and what he isn't doing well on this certain day. I felt like the adjustments were made. I don't know what the halftime speech was, but it had to have been good because just the second half, both sides of the ball, the effort was phenomenal.
Yeah, and now you get to a spot where it was billed all week. This was like a college football playoff eliminator. The team that left here was going to have 3 losses. The road for Oklahoma was going to be much more difficult. Tennessee, obviously, I think they have a lively Florida team left. I think they have a bye game, and then Vandy. So you had that. I don't remember who there was.
New Mexico State.
New Mexico State.
That's
Okay,
right,
I was like, I don't remember who the bye game was. So Vandy, who had lost to Texas State. Oklahoma, obviously, on a bye. At least Alabama has LSU next week. So, Alabama can't work ahead. Then Oklahoma heads down to Tuscaloosa. But this was a spot where I know that not a ton of confidence. None of us here at the website picked Oklahoma. And for the first 15 minutes of clock, it was like, this is kind of why. The offense was so shaky. And in a game where it felt like it was going to be a little bit of a shootout, was it going to be, are you going to hold Tennessee, or was Oklahoma finally going to score 30 in SEC play? And They finally scored 30 in SEC play. Can this be the turning moment, not just for this season, as being able to flip it back and say, Ole Miss, top 10 team, sucks, you had chances, stuff like that. Is this maybe a moment that Brent Venables can seize this and turn it and say, we finally made the plays in a massive game, not in a game against Alabama where we were playing for pride, but what does that look like? Can they take this to Tuscaloosa and run with it?
I think it's definitely at least a reminder. At the very least, okay, we were this good. Even if Auburn and Michigan haven't turned out to be world beaters, we looked awesome in those games. We have a confident group. We can take this into Tuscaloosa, bring some energy with that. There is a lot to play for with this team. Bama's not going to be an easy out. They are first, second best. Wherever you want to rank them, they're a very dang good football team in this conference. Just great on both sides of the ball. So, they have to recognize the good from this game and build off of that because they're going to need it. Every team in the SEC that plays against Bama will. But it's just got to be a good reminder that after everything happened between Mateer surgery, the distractions that come with that, getting punched in the mouth by Texas, it's easy to kind of lose the focus, I feel like, getting it back in an atmosphere that I can't imagine there are many more hostile atmospheres than this one in college football. It's impressive, and it should be at least a confidence builder, if nothing else.
Neyland Stadium's unbelievable. We'll get to that here in a second.
Great.
But when you look at it, Brent Venables, he had talked about Kobe and R. Mason. He kind of bunched them together in the postgame and said that he doesn't expect either of those to be super serious. Kobe was giving it a go in warm-ups, and he got through the warm-ups that happened in the end zone. If you've been to games you know what I'm talking about, through the end zone. Then he got over to the sideline to some of the linebacker drills, and he was going through them, and midway through linebacker drills, he pulled himself out, started talking to the trainer. He was trying. It felt like he was really, really close, but I think it was pretty clear by the end of it that he was like, okay, I'm not going to be able to give this a go. We'll see on R. Mason. And again, Britt said doesn't think it's going to be super serious, but they'll see. This is a huge week for the defense. It's just some detail stuff that Brent talked about kind of in postgame. And for John Mateer, I can't imagine what these next 2 weeks would have been like for him if he had come out, played like he did in the first half, in the second half, all the questions from us yahoos, from everyone, probably internally, what does that look like? But now it becomes you have a path forward, right? Xavier Robinson, this running game, it's something you can build on. Oklahoma ends up with 192 rushing yards. Oklahoma ends up with 192 rushing yards. Oklahoma, I'm going to say it again, they end up with 192 rushing yards on the road in the SEC in a game where they scored 30 points. Hot damn, what does that look like? You got an offensive line that you know that you can build off of with those 3 young pieces, Michael and Fabechi Wiwu.
Might get Simmons back, too.
Might get Simmons back, maybe. We'll see. But if not, the Foje athleticism and everything is something that you want to roll with. They've already experienced this Neyland atmosphere, and so Tuscaloosa, Bryant Denny's going to be loud. It's going to be awesome.
I have trouble believing it's going to be as loud as this was, though.
Even if it's just a push, even if it is just as loud, it's like you've experienced this.
They're used to it. Yeah,
they're used to it now, and this is something where Arbuckle, it feels like, can dial in on building Mateer back up to the pass that we saw early in the it just couldn't come at a bigger time. And we've talked about at many different points because the question's still been out there, like, is Brent Venables the guy that can get Oklahoma all the way back? He's fixed the defense. Can he get all the way back? The reason why the Michigan game is the biggest game of the Brent Venables tenure, then the Auburn game is the biggest game, then the Texas game is the biggest game, then the Ole Miss game. It's because that question's still open. It feels like, though, that this Tennessee game was massive. If they go out and lose this game or certainly get blown out, it becomes there's not going to be a move at the end of this year with a new AD coming in, but it was going to put Brent firmly back in hot seat discussions going into the offseason, all that stuff. Wipe all that away. Now it becomes, you go and beat Alabama.
It's looking a lot
Even
better.
if you don't beat Alabama, if you play a really, really close game in Tuscaloosa, Carson, then you come home and beat a Missouri team that might not have Bo Prabula, beat an LSU team that who knows what that's going to look like. Maybe no Brian Kelly probably helps them out. I'm not saying you're auto in, but for Brent Venables, the task was get to 8-3 or 8-4, 9-3, get Oklahoma in the conversation on Selection Sunday. That path, I think we can all see that path after what they showed today.
Yeah, no, definitely. This team looked like it's capable of beating just about anybody today. Not a perfect game, plenty of blunders. Like we said early on, wasn't great, but just the resiliency in the second half is what you need out of a team that's going to contend. It's got to give them a lot of confidence before playing a team as good as Bama. Beat Bama, things get really interesting. Even if they don't, like you said, play a competitive game. Wacky things have happened today in college football. They've happened all year.
Rip Georgia Tech.
RIP to the Yellow Jackets. But you never know. It's not a lot of things would have to fall their way, but it's not impossible that even with the loss to Bama, they would be just totally eliminated.
Regardless, first Tuesday night, first CFP rankings come out. Going to be something we're all going to be watching, all going to be covering, obviously, OklahomaSooners.si.com, because it's going to be they were 18 in the AP poll. The new AP poll will drop. They'll move up. A lot of carnage in college football. Great. They're suddenly going to be on that in the hunt graphic, and they're going to be on the in the hunt graphic with a top 5 matchup with Alabama looming. It'll certainly be a top 5 matchup, locked on for sure, if Alabama can beat, or at least Alabama in the top 5, not top. You know what I mean? It's 1 a.m. It literally just turned 1 a.m. Bear with us. But they're going to have a chance to go on the road and notch a win over a team in the top 5.
Yep.
There we go. Nailed it. Second time's the
charm. There you go.
And that would be something to propel. That's something that's incredible kibble to put out there going into a bye week.
It definitely is. I mean, it shows them that the goal is still reachable at this point. I think if they lose today, I mean, they still technically maybe could get that backdoor way in if they beat Bama and Missouri and LSU. But would that have really been likely if they were to just come to Neyland Stadium and got slaughtered? My take is no. I do not think that would have been likely. But seeing how they looked in the second half, I'm not saying that makes the Bama game easier because it doesn't, but it should give them a little faith like, okay, we can play a complete game of football. We don't just totally look like we did against Ole Miss or Texas. We still have a very high ceiling. You saw that tonight.
Fantastic win, 33-27. Oklahoma marches into Neyland and notches another big-time win here in one of the absolute cathedrals of college football. I'm so glad that in the SEC, this is not a shot at like Ames, Iowa, or Lubbock or anything like that. They're great atmosphere, especially when Oklahoma comes to town. But coming here, I mean, they were reading out all the stats. It's one of the largest stadiums in the world, one of the largest in college football. The wall of noise, the dark mode beforehand, the light show.
Pretty awesome.
Third down for what being back. Just the drive in. Knoxville's a beautiful, beautiful place. Like, these are the settings that Oklahoma should be playing in these settings every single week. And that's what's so exciting about the SEC is that we've been to a bunch of incredible stops already. You haven't even covered full 2 years with us.
No,
and you've been to some incredible stops.
Williams-Brice, Baton Rouge, I know we got Sanford Stadium, Gainesville, Kyle Field, all on the slate in future years.
We're headed to Tuscaloosa next time out. I mean,
getting ahead of myself. It's not exciting.
Pretty unbelievable, pretty awesome. And Oklahoma in the mix. I kind of said it as they were walking off the field. Still alive, the Sooners, and it's not like a clinging on for dear life. Did they have to cling on kind of at the end? A little bit, sort of. It wasn't quite survive in advanced mode there. The last 2 minutes, it's certainly more difficult than it needed to be, but this is an Oklahoma team that's going to be carrying a lot of confidence rolling into Tuscaloosa. It's going to be pretty fun. Be sure to head to the website, OklahomaSooners.si.com. Like I said, it is 1 a.m. here, so we're going to pause. We're going to stop this. We're going to wrap up. Plenty more content to come, OklahomaSooners.si.com, as well as John Hoover's YouTube page. You know it. You love it. John Hoover Media. So the player interviews. Got to talk to Doug Deacon after the Tate Sandell. Oh, sorry. We can't close down yet.
Good point.
We can't close down yet. Tate Sandell, 4 field goals. He was so money it almost just left my brain. 4 field goals, 55, 55, 51, 40. Groza Award winner. Heisman Trophy winner. The Raiders are going to draft him in the first round of the draft. No, Brent Venables, you could tell, big smile on his face. He was talking about, he was asked about the turnovers. He's like, the turnovers helped keep us in this game. And as he was about to go into another question, he's like, and Tate Sandell, called him an animal. I mean, we talked to Doug Deacon and Tate Sandell tonight. It's not often, Carson, we get to, I asked Taylor Wine, what's it like having Tate Sandell on your football team? And it's not often a badass defensive ends lighting up about a kicker. He's unbelievable. He's unreal.
I think every player got asked about Tate Sandell in some capacity, at least the interviews that I was in. Yeah. I think it was Isaiah Satania who said that guy's going to be kicking on Sundays. I think it was Kip Lewis said they'd try to rattle him in practice. And he's just unshaken, and you saw that 105, whatever it is, 1,000 fans screaming at him today. He was unfazed. He was excellent, as he has been.
Yeah, he's tied Gabe Burkich's school record for most consecutive made field goals at 18. His next one out in Tuscaloosa. He has a chance to break that. Unbelievable. We'll have more on Tate Sandell Wednesday when we regroup, get Hoove involved, get Aber involved for the full-fledged bye-week edition of the Sooners on SI podcast. But that's all the damage we can do here from Neyland Stadium. For Carson, I'm Ryan. Stick with us. We'll be churning out a bunch of content as we drive back on Sunday. So be sure you head to the website, OklahomaSooners on SI.com. Until then, see you guys.